When we think of the greatest empires in history, the first that comes to mind is the Roman Empire, which ruled over much of Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa for over 1,000 years. Its extraordinary political, military, and social organization inspired countless future kingdoms and civilizations. With the fall of its western part, the Eastern Empire, also known as the Byzantine Empire, managed to survive for another 1,000 years, until it capitulated to the might of the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire became one of the dominant powers between Europe and Asia, controlling strategic territories and influencing trade and culture for centuries. With a solid political and military organization, it was able to extend its rule over 3 continents. Over time, however, internal and external pressures weakened the empire, which finally fell after the First World War. This empire had drawn strength and inspiration from the territories conquered by another giant of history, the Mongol Empire. Founded by the legendary Genghis Khan, the Mongol Empire spread rapidly from the steppes of Mongolia to the gates of Europe, becoming the largest land empire in history. Despite its short lifespan, it left a deep impression on the politics and culture of the regions it conquered. Only one last great leader managed to emulate the achievements of the Roman emperors, Napoleon Bonaparte. His military and political genius not only changed the face of Europe, but also helped spread revolutionary ideas that defined an era. In this video, we explore how these 4 great empires, for all their majesty, power, and efficiency, eventually succumbed to the inexorable changes of history. The Western Roman Empire. The fall of the Western Roman Empire, a momentous event in history, is traditionally dated to 476 AD, the year in which Odoacer, a barbarian general and king of the Heruli, deposed the last emperor, Romulus Augustus. This act, though symbolic, was the culmination of a long process of decline that had begun centuries earlier. Many factors contributed to the empire's downfall: barbarian invasions, economic crises, political instability, and social change. The barbarian invasions in particular had a devastating effect on the empire, driven by the migration of the Huns. Peoples such as the Visigoths, Vandals, Alans, and Burgundians crossed the Roman frontiers, sacking cities and weakening imperial structures. Reduced control over the frontiers also made the administrative system less effective, leading to an impoverishment of the public purse. From the 3rd century AD, Rome experienced a period of great political instability, with army generals often fighting each other for the position of emperor. An attempt to halt this decline was made by Diocletian, an emperor who promoted far-reaching social, military, and administrative reforms, and above all, laid the foundations for the division of the vast empire into 2 parts. This division did not take place until the end of the 3rd century under Theodosius, but it did not have the hoped-for effect. On the contrary, it further weakened the western part of the empire. The constant wars between generals for control of power, but also the barbarization of the army, contributed to political instability and the decline of central authority. According to some, even the sudden spread of Christianity in some way accelerated this process of disintegration. Certainly, the spread of various doctrinal disputes, especially between the east and west of the empire and between north and south, contributed to further instability in the empire. The deposition of Romulus Augustus was therefore not a sudden event, but the formalization of a reality in which the emperor was now a puppet in the hands of the barbarian generals. Odoacer was recognized as a patrician by the Eastern Emperor Zeno, who wanted to try to maintain at least formal control over Italy. Odoacer and his successors, including the most famous of the Goths, Theodoric, ruled Rome and Italy while maintaining Roman institutions. But Roman barbarian kingdoms flourished in the rest of the continent, the most famous of which was certainly that of the Franks. The fall of the Western Roman Empire certainly had a profound effect on the history of Europe and the Mediterranean. The resulting transformations led to the formation of new kingdoms, the embryos of today's European nations. But the legacy of Rome lived on, influencing culture, law, and society. The Ottoman Empire. The fall of the Ottoman Empire, an event that marked the end of one of the most enduring and influential empires in history, was a complex and gradual process that unfolded over several centuries. Many factors contributed to the decline and dissolution of the empire, including internal problems such as territorial overexpansion and lack of technological modernization, but also the progressive shift of the international economic center of gravity towards the Atlantic Ocean. The first signs of decline began to appear during the sultanates following that of Suleiman the Magnificent in the 16th century. Excessive territorial expansion, which saw the empire control a vast area from North Africa to the Balkans, led to an unsustainable administrative burden. The lack of an efficient centralized administration, evidenced by the discretion granted to local governors, contributed to the weakening of central authority. These governors gained more and more power, sometimes no longer answering to the central authority, thus increasing political and social tensions. The empire was also at a technological disadvantage to the European powers, particularly in the introduction of firearms. The discovery of America in 1492 had a devastating effect on the Ottoman economy. The shift of trade routes from the Mediterranean to the Atlantic and the influx of gold and silver from the American colonies caused runaway inflation that severely damaged Ottoman trade. In addition, the empire faced increasing pressure from European powers seeking to expand their territories and exploit Ottoman resources. Wars against Austria and Russia for control of the Balkans further weakened the empire, while the loss of Egypt following Napoleon's invasion in 1798 deprived it of one of its richest provinces. Internal tensions over succession, characterized by frequent power struggles and assassinations between pretenders, contributed to political instability. The lack of a codified dynastic law aggravated the situation, leading to civil wars and further weakening the Sultan's authority. By the early 20th century, the vast territory of the Ottoman Empire was a memory, confined almost entirely to the Middle East and the European Balkans. The Young Turk Revolution of 1908 in Turkey, the heart of the empire, although initially promising in terms of reform and modernization, led to a period of political instability and internal conflict. The empire lost most of its European territories in the Balkan Wars of 1912 to 1913, and the First World War was the coup de grace. The empire's defeat on the side of the Central Powers led to its partition among the victorious powers. The 1920 Treaty of Sèvres imposed harsh conditions on the Ottoman Empire, which lost virtually all its territories and was confined to the territory of modern-day Turkey. It was here that the Turkish nationalist movement, led by Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, rose to prominence. Following a war of independence that ended in 1923, he sought to regain control of the areas of Anatolia and Thrace that had been ceded to Greece after the First World War. Atatürk's victory ended with the victory of the nationalists and the birth of the Republic of Turkey in 1923. The fall of the Ottoman Empire marked the end of an era, paving the way for a new world order and the emergence of new states in the Middle East. However, the legacy of the empire continues to influence the geopolitics of the region and the world. The Mongol Empire. Compared to the fall of other empires, the fall of the Mongols was more sudden, as was their development. In just a few years, Genghis Khan had conquered vast territories in Central Asia, reaching as far as the gates of Europe. However, this meant that the administration of the empire was complicated, not least because many of the territories in Central Asia were semi-inhabited and difficult to cross, making communication and efficiency between the seat of power and the western borders difficult. The death of Menke Khan, son of Tolui and grandson of Genghis Khan, in 1259, without a designated heir, triggered a violent power struggle between the different branches of the family. In the Tolui Civil War, fought between Tolui's sons, Kublai Khan established himself as the Great Khan, but his authority was not recognized by all the Khanates. The empire split into 4 independent Khanates: the Yuan dynasty Great Khanate, the Golden Horde Khanate, the Chagatai Khanate, and the Ilkhanate. Although Kublai Khan and his successors in the Yuan dynasty held the nominal title of Khagan, the 4 Khanates pursued their own interests and dissolved at different times. Political fragmentation, combined with internal rivalries and conflicts between the Khanates, undermined the unity of the empire. Kaidu Khan, Ogodiai's grandson, opposed Kublai Khan and attempted to reunite the empire under his leadership. But his rebellion was eventually crushed. Despite the brief reunification under Temur Khan in 1304, the nominal supremacy of the Yuan dynasty over the Western Khanates was not on the same solid footing as in the past. The Western Khanates, now independent entities, faced challenges and declined at different times. The Golden Horde fragmented into a number of smaller Khanates, weakened by internal struggles and increasing pressure from Muscovy. The Chagatai Khanate, split between Transoxiana and Mogulistan, was the scene of constant power struggles and conflict with the Oratids. The Ilkhanate, after a period of prosperity under Ghazan Khan, disintegrated into several states after the death of Abu Sa'id. The fall of the Mongol Empire was thus a complex process fueled by a number of factors: dynastic struggles, rivalry between Khanates, external pressures, and internal transformations. The last Khan, Ligdan Khan, was subjugated by the Qing dynasty in 1634. The Napoleonic Empire. Several centuries after the Roman Empire, Napoleon Bonaparte managed to bring most of the Mediterranean under his control. Napoleon was extraordinary in his conquest of countless territories, less so in his management, entrusting the various kingdoms of his empire to his relatives. Napoleon's power was immediately opposed by Britain and the eastern countries. There was also strong opposition within the empire, including from Spain. Despite this, Napoleon seemed to be able to rule unopposed for a long time, until he suffered a series of ruinous defeats in battle. The disastrous Russian campaign of 1812 marked a decisive turning point in Napoleon's downfall. Despite his initial success in occupying Moscow, the burning of the city and the Tsar's refusal to negotiate peace forced Napoleon into a disastrous retreat during the harsh Russian winter. The Grand Army suffered colossal losses, and Napoleon's power was irreparably damaged. The defeat in Russia encouraged the formation of a new coalition against Napoleon, led by Prussia and Austria. The Battle of Leipzig in 1813, known as the Battle of the Nations, ended with Napoleon's defeat and his retreat within French borders. Napoleon's military collapse led to his political collapse. The French elite, eager for peace and stability, favored the return of the Bourbon monarchy in the person of Louis XVIII. Napoleon's exile on the island of Elba was short-lived, as he returned to France in 1815 for the 100 Days. However, his final defeat at Waterloo in 1815 against a European coalition marked the end of his reign and his final exile to the island of St. Helena. The fall of the Napoleonic Empire had a profound effect on Europe, paving the way for a new political order and a period of revolution involving many states. Conclusion. This concludes our exploration of the most dramatic moment in the history of these great empires, their fall. Although it marks the end of an era, their fascination remains intact and continues to inspire scholars, enthusiasts, and political leaders around the world. Their story reminds us that even the most extraordinary powers are not immortal, but their legacy transcends time, offering valuable lessons in resilience, ambition, and power dynamics. The fall of these empires marks not only a moment of decline, but also an opportunity to reflect on the consequences of political decisions, the challenges of leadership, and the value of historical memory as a guide to humanity's future.